Good morning, everyone, and I just want to thank Tom for those kind words. Tom was one of the mentor coaches for me and helped me a lot in my path as a coach in terms of developing a coaching style and a philosophy. I really appreciate being here today. I think it's an honor to be with everyone in the room yesterday and listening to all the presentations. And I don't know about you, but I always find there's one piece or 10 pieces that you can get out of each presentation to help you be a better coach. I call it my coach's toolkit. Just like a carpenter or a mechanic, you need a box of tools, so to speak, and you pull them out when you need them. So today, hopefully, you can grab one piece of my presentation that can help you in some way and help the players that you work with. I want to thank the IIHF for having me and Czech Federation. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here again, and thank you. I think this conference has been outstanding, well organized, and first class all the way. Today my topic is Canadian post-secondary hockey. Basically the concept here I'm going to do today is try to achieve two goals. One is to give you a little bit of an overview of how the system works in Canada so you can understand it. I know the United States has a very strong sports system called the NCAA. You're familiar with that, I'm sure. But we have a strong sports system in Canada too. And it's a competitive system. I'll talk a little bit about that and how it works from my perspective, because I spent most of my coaching career in that system, and it was a wonderful coaching career. Second part I'd like to do is just talk about what we did at SAIT. I coached at SAIT Trojans in Calgary, Alberta. The school was SAIT Polytechnic, which is a school of about 15,000 technical-focused students based on 2-3 year programs, mainly in engineering, business, those types of programs. But you know, I think the best thing I can share with you from my experience is that I started coaching when I was going to school at the University of Saskatchewan. I had a coach named Dave King. I'm sure you've heard of him. Dave was a tremendous coach and still is today. He had a big influence on me. He got me interested in coaching, and so while I was going to school, when I quit playing, I started coaching minor hockey, and I started in bantam hockey, and that's where I started coaching and took all our certification programs, came to these types of conferences, just grabbed whatever I could and worked my way through it. So I encourage you to keep doing this. You never know who you're going to meet. You never know where your career is going to end. But at the end of the day, I agree with Tom's message. We really need to think about why we're coaching. And the reason I stayed in the game so long, and one of the reasons I went over to sledge hockey, is that it's really about helping people succeed and getting an experience as a person. Sledge hockey is an amazing sport. I knew nothing of it except for watching on television. 5 months ago, Hockey Canada asked me would I come out and help them pick their sledge hockey team for this year's World Championships. I said, you know what? I don't know anything about sledge hockey. They said, well, it doesn't matter. You know how to coach, and we'd like you to come out and try that. So I went out, and it was amazing to me. Amazing athletes. They're crazy. They're courageous, and they're really open-minded to being coached. And so from my perspective, it was a win-win situation. So I got involved, and I encourage you, if you ever get a chance to see it, to help out with it, please do it. It'll really inspire you. Anyways, Canadian post-secondary hockey, talking about sport and studies. I'll just briefly give you an overview. Hockey Canada is the governing organization of all amateur hockey in Canada. So what that means is that anything to do with amateur hockey in Canada, Hockey Canada has some sort of either direct involvement or an indirect involvement by a partnership. Nothing can really occur in Canada in terms of amateur hockey without their involvement or their approval, so to speak. It governs also provincial branch organizations and elite and recreational hockey. Currently in Canada, there are 635,000 approximately registered players. That was based on 2014 statistics. Of those, 580,000 are males, and the other 60 to 80,000 are females. And the main focus of Canadian hockey is not the elite teams that we see here at the World Championships. It's in recreational hockey, in minor hockey. And That's why in Canada we have so many people involved with coaching and involved in other programs. The opportunity to get the NHL for Canadian players, I think there's probably 450 players that are of Canadian backgrounds playing in the NHL right now. 450, that's less than 2% of the total registered players. So really when you think about it, Tom's right. Why are we coaching? What are we hoping to do with our coaching careers? And what's the benefit we're going to try and leave people with? In my career, I've coached over 750 to 1,000 players at SAIT alone, and combine that with some of my international experiences, probably another 200 players. And I hope somewhere along the way that I've helped them, because they've sure helped me develop me as a coach and as a person. And I know that one of the biggest successes we had at SAIT, and I was most proud of, was how many guys graduated and went on to work, or went on to their careers, went on back into the community. So elite and recreational hockey, that's what Hockey Canada does. We have the Canadian Hockey League, as you know, that's major junior. It has affiliation with Hockey Canada. It operates distinctly, though, but it has an affiliation with Hockey Canada. And then in terms of post-secondary, we have the Canadian Inter-University Sports System. That's universities. And then we have the Canadian Colleges Athletic Association. So here is the development of players through the development stages in Canada. This model is primarily male-based, but female-based is the same. Sorry, go back there. If you see here, the Canadian, right here, Canadian University College System is after junior hockey. Most of the players that play Canadian University College System are 21 years and over and have come out of Canadian Junior A, which is Canadian Junior Hockey League, and the Major Junior. Some Junior B players will make the Canadian University system here, but most come out of the CHL or the Junior A system. Same thing with women's female hockey. The players will come out of midget, bantam, AAA, and AA, and they'll go directly into professional hockey. There's a league in Canada now for women and a national team. So that's the system. That's how it works. That's the age groups. So the players playing post-secondary in Canada are over 20 years old for males, and for females, anywhere in the range of 18 to 20 years old. The role of education. I think it's important that you understand and recognize that Hockey Canada, because it's dealing with so many players, amateur players, promotes education in all its hockey. It's actually one of the values in the whole program. Focus is on developing the whole person through hockey. Tom touched on that a bit. As coaches in Canada, we like to think of ourselves, well, you know, maybe we'll have the next Sid Crosby or McDavid or whatever, but the reality of that is probably not going to happen. You're probably going to affect a lot more people in a positive way if you coach from a principle of trying to help them gain some positive skills that they can use in their mature adult life. Canadian Hockey League, Major Junior Hockey, and Junior A Hockey in Canada, CJHL, stress education. As a matter of fact, the CHL has a strong educational scholarship program. And I'll get to that in a bit. So it's not just playing hockey. We're focused on being educators too. I mean, being educated through playing hockey. And post-secondary hockey is a known option in Canada for a lot of these players. Post-secondary hockey, as I mentioned, Canadian Inter-University Sports System, the Canadian Colleges Athletic Association. It's important, I think, I make the distinction here that both are separate from each other. The NCAA is one system. In Canada, we have two systems. However, the teams play each other in non-conference games and tournaments, etc. And actually, I spent about 10 years of my career as a athletics director and hockey coach at SAIT trying to get a blended sport model in Canada. Came close a few times, had the approval of Hockey Canada, Bob Nicholson and other people, except when we got to the academic side, the universities didn't want to blend in with the technical institutes, so we couldn't get it done. CIS hockey. So let's talk about the university system in Canada. There's 33 teams in 4 conferences across our big country. So we have a Maritime Division, an Ontario-Quebec Division, and Prairie Division. Most of the players are from the Canadian Hockey League, Major Junior, and Canadian Junior Hockey League grads. The average age is 22 and a half years. All the coaches are full-time elite coaches. When I started coaching, we had to teach, and we had to either be an administrator and coach or teach and coach. Now the model is full-time elite coaches. In the university hockey system in Canada, there is a professional rule, meaning that professionals can come back into the system. They have to sit out a year, and they use a year of eligibility for every year that they play pro. You have 5 years of eligibility, and if you were to play pro a year or two, you would lose a year or two of eligibility. Plus, you have to sit out for a year. So it's a little tougher coming back into the system after junior hockey if you go to minor pro or major pro. CCAA hockey is basically one program now in the Alberta Colleges Athletic Conference where I coached. There's 9 teams, 225 players. CHL, CJHL, and Junior B grads. Average age is 21.5. Full-time elite coaches now. Some famous coaches that you might know of, I'll talk about that came out of this conference. Mike Babcock coached at Red Deer College early in his career. Perry Pern coached at NAIT for many years. Mike Johnson coached the Pittsburgh Penguins, head coach Pittsburgh Penguins, coached in this conference against all those guys. And when I was coming up through the system, Perry Pern at NAIT, they had the most dominant program. And when I started at SAIT, SAIT hadn't won many games. I think it won 5 games. And we're bottom of the barrel. So it took a lot of work to go against those kind of coaches, but it was a great challenge and a great experience. Now in college hockey in Alberta, there are all full-time coaches. I was the last when I left a year ago that was a administrator / coach from the old model. In the ACAC or the college conference, everybody has to be a full-time student, just like the university system. You can't be a part-time student. You have to be a full-time student, either in a diploma, trades, or degree program. You have 5 years of eligibility, and you must achieve 18 credits per year. So you have to show progression. You can't be failing out and continue to keep playing the sport. And there's not a professional rule in the ACAC, so we have players coming back that, say, left junior hockey in Canada, went to try pro. Maybe it worked out. Maybe they're playing in the minor system in the East Coast League or something along those lines, and they want to come and say, you know what, I think I'm going to go to school. I can see that I'm not going to go to the NHL, so I'm going to go to school. And they can come back in the system right away without sitting out. I think that's good. I think hockey should have that. I think it's important that if people decide to go and try something, they should be able to realize it might not happen and come back in and get an education without having to pay a penalty for it. That's my view on that. It's important you recognize that in Canada, all post-secondary education is not free. It is somewhat subsidized, but not free like it is in parts of Europe here. There's no free going to post-secondary, so there is a cost. The average enrollment fees at most schools over 2 semesters, that would be the fall-winter semester, is around 4,000 to 5,000 Canadian dollars per semester. So the cost of just the registration alone of tuition is about $10,000 a year. The schools will provide scholarships towards their athletes in all sports, hockey included. However, you cannot provide books or accommodations. That's the distinction between the Canadian sports system in terms of athletes and the American NCAA Division I system, is that you cannot provide books and accommodations. In the American system, you can. Whether all schools do that or not, there's some, you need to investigate that a bit. CHL scholarships. So one of the reasons that Major Junior in Canada has been able to keep good players from going down to the NCAA and play Division I hockey, say in Michigan or Wisconsin, these things, is to offer an education program for those players that stay in from, say, about 17, 18, 19. Those 3 years when they're making those decisions, they get tuition value per year. So what I'm saying that is that if you're a 3-year graduate of the WHL, you might have $15,000 in scholarship money that you can use to go to university or college if you don't make the NHL. So it's really important because that $15,000 is over and above what the school will give you. So really at the end of the day, major junior players that go back into the post-secondary system in Canada are actually on a full scholarship. They're getting everything covered, basically. And it's kept a lot of good players in Canada playing at that level. And I think the quality of college university hockey, especially university hockey, is quite high. And I'll show you that in a few minutes here. But anyway, so they're getting scholarship money, about $5,000 to $6,000 per year. And it allows for a full ride potential for major junior grads. Competition format. I just want to talk a little bit about this. It's not recreational. It's serious. There's 28 to 32 regular conference season games. Most teams will play anywhere from 6 to 8 exhibition games. There's another 6 or 9 playoff games. So totally, you're 40 to 45 games. High-end players. Weekends mostly. It runs first semester, September to December. Then there's the exam break and the Christmas break. And you come back in and you go January to March. And then you have spring exams. And then summer, most students go to work or do their practicums, that sort of stuff. So it is a student-athlete balance. But it's not recreational hockey. It's very competitive. Same as football, basketball, any other major sports that you've heard about before through the NCAA. Canadian system's same way that way. Quality of the athlete. As I mentioned, they're junior grads out of the CHL or the Canadian Junior Hockey League. Many of the players will go on and play minor professional in Europe. I met some guys today and yesterday actually that went through the Canadian sports system, are played in Europe, and are now coaching in Europe. Or they'll go off and play in North America, East Coast League. Some guys have gone to the American League. And over 200 players have come out of the CIS and a college system to play in the NHL. Probably the most recognized player might be for some of you if you're old enough. Randy Gregg, who played with the Edmonton Oilers for years. He was from the University of Alberta. Mike Ridley, another really good player, played in the NHL with New York Rangers, I believe. Came from the University of Manitoba. So it is a route. It's not the primary route. Major junior is the primary route in Canada. However, it is a route for some players. These athletes will practice 4 times a week. They'll train off ice another 2 times a week. So in terms of their full-time student schedule, studying, going to class, working out, it's about 60 to 80 hours a week that they're committed to their sport. Basically, why do players choose this? Well, I think they do because it's a life choice. In my capacity as a head coach of Canada's national sledge team, we have a gentleman that works with us. He works at Hockey Canada. He's our team leader. Very good young man, Ben Schutron. Ben Schutron played 5 years in the OHL with Windsor. He was a very good defenseman. And I asked Ben, and then he went to University of New Brunswick, which is a top program in Canada. Them and U of A are probably the top 2 teams the last few years, U of A historically. But anyways, I said, you know, Ben, why did you choose to go to school? He said, well, you know, I had a tryout offer to go to the American League. I had a contract offer, a signed contract in the East Coast League. But, you know, I realized I probably not going to make it to the NHL. And so what I want to do with the 5 years of scholarship money I had, New Brunswick is offering me another scholarship on top of that. And I thought, you know what? It's a life choice. I got to make it. And he made it. He said it was a great experience. They won some national championships. And so really listening to him and knowing my experience with some of my players, I think the payoff is basically in 3 things: hockey, life, and education. And what I mean by that is these players choose this because they get to prolong their career. They get to get some money through that. And they make amazing contacts. Not hockey contacts, but career contacts by going to school. They'll meet all kinds of different students from different aspects that'll help them later in their lives. In life, I think hockey offers this: character development, leadership development, and teamwork skills. Doug Mitchell, a very prominent Canadian lawyer and supporter of university sports in Canada, I met him a few times and became a friend with his, and I said, Doug, why do you push post-secondary sports so much? And he said, you know what? In our law firm, he's part of one of the biggest law firms in Canada, nationwide. In our law firm, he's the chairman, and he says, in our law firm, when we interview future lawyers to join our firm, one of the things I say, don't show me a resume, don't show me anybody that does not have a sports background, because they'll bring this to the table for their firm. Character, leadership, and teamwork. In terms of education, graduation, career, and success in that career. And the Ben Schutron story really hits home to me because he made that choice for the life choice, and this is the payoff he's hoping to get out of it. And one of the things when I coached at SAIT, I was proud of is that about 95% of our 700 guys that I coached graduated. And I remember a lot of those athletes, when I first met them coming out of junior hockey, they were just coming to SAIT to play hockey, and school was going to be the second part. When they left, it was school was first, and hockey was kind of maybe equal to that, but they knew they were on their life journey, so to speak. Well, the impact of post-secondary hockey in Canada, I think, has been profound. Certainly helped with development of hockey in Canada and internationally. Positive development of the whole person. School and community spirit. I think that's one thing it can bring. Community and business leadership. That's an impact too, because many of these players will go back into communities, be positive role models, be leaders in their businesses, and the development of elite coaches and training methods. And I'll just explain that a little bit further. Because the coaches now are full-time, they're highly certified and experienced, spend a lot of time recruiting and fundraising. The school will give you so much money, but usually you have to fundraise about another $100,000. A university college coach in Canada will be everything from chief bottle washer to doing your game plans to recruiting to fundraising. So I think it makes you a better coach, actually, because you have to do everything and you have to learn everything. And Canadian coaches in a post-secondary system train a lot of other coaches. It's the basis of Canadian hockey coaching program, actually. And I'll explain this in a second. There are some names of gentlemen, high-quality coaches that have come through the Canadian post-secondary system as coaches. Dave King, Claire Drake, Tom Watt, George Kingston, Mike Babcock, Mike Johnston, Bill Peters, coach of Carolina, Willie Jardins, coach of Vancouver Canucks. Paul Carson was the coach at UBC and is very strong in the development of hockey in Canada and in the IIHF. Dave Chambers, University of Toronto in York, and NHL. Wayne Fleming, NHL, University of Manitoba. Don McKee. And there's others and others and others that go on and on. So in Canada, a lot of the best coaches, a lot of the coaches you hear about actually get groomed in the post-secondary system. And I think they're better coaches because they went there to learn how to coach. And by being in the learning environment, they got better as coaches, and plus they had to do everything. They were chief bottle washers, everything. So I think it's provided a lot of leadership, obviously, in Canada. As I mentioned, Claire Drake is just an icon from development of the coaching certification program. Dave King, obviously. These gentlemen have all had strong impacts, and it's led to a better game, I think, worldwide because of their impacts. Economically, what's the cost to run a program in Canada? About $500,000. I put $400,000 on there, but the more I thought about that, nowadays with the cost of tuition, to get players, you have to offer a lot of money. Because there's not free tuition, you have to offer some tuition scholarships. So you're looking at about $500,000 Canadian. So the schools and the institutions have really made a big commitment. And they expect, number one thing that the schools will expect of hockey coaches is to be first, good citizens, and athletes that are students first. And that's the focus I think is really, really important. Student first, athlete second. Some trends, well, actually there's more post-secondary teams developing. Alberta is adding teams. CIS is adding teams. There's increased player interest. And there's an NCAA reality in Canada going on now. And what I mean by that is, in my day, a lot of Canadian guys came out of junior hockey and went down to the United States and played on scholarships. There's less of that now. There's less international imports in general in the NCAA. USA Hockey has done a tremendous job of developing its base programming, and so it now has strong programming not only at the midget age level, but at the junior age level, the USHL and other junior leagues. So more and more American players are going through into the NCAA, taking the spots of Canadian players. So when I talk to Canadian kids, well, I say, I'm going to go down and play in the NCAA. I say, oh yeah, where are you going to play? And they'll name a place. I'll say, is that a full ride scholarship? Oh no, we have to pay some. Well, you have to pay some. You might be paying $20,000 to $30,000 to $40,000 American to go down there and play, and that's an NCAA reality for Canadian athletes, Canadian hockey athletes. And another interesting development in Canada is the growth of hockey academies. And I was talking to some of the folks here about, is this happening in Europe? And they were telling me that's starting to develop now in the Czech Republic here, and I guess in other countries, and it's just gone crazy in Canada. What a hockey academy is that at the high school and the junior high school. So in Canada, we call them junior highs, middle school, maybe be a way to explain it. Grade 7 onward, there are now hockey academies tied into those high schools. So where the students do hockey every day, play for the hockey academy, and and a club team on top of that, and go to school. And this is growing and growing and growing. Now in Canada, these hockey academies, parents have to pay for it, anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 per year. It's not free education for these hockey academies, but they're growing like crazy, and it's an interesting trend in our country. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about what we did at SAIT. I was fortunate to be part of a great school and a great program. In our last 17 years, when I was there, we were in 14 league finals in 17 years. We won 9 of them. And I think we did that because, as people mentioned yesterday, we had a certain culture about how we did our program. And it was based on what were called the Trojan pillars: athletic excellence, academic success, and community citizenship. And Sean's here. Sean coached with me. Sean Finn here. He coached with me at SAIT. All our athletes, as Sean will tell you guys, had to work hard in the athletics component, had to go to school full time, and they had to do some community work. If they didn't, they wouldn't play. And this really helped define us and it gave us our focus as what we were doing every day in terms of being a hockey athlete. Athletic excellence. So what that meant for the SAIT Trojans hockey players was that they had to do year-round training. In season, we had 2 games a week, as I mentioned, Friday, Saturdays usually, sometimes midweek if it was a team that was close. But you could travel anywhere from 9 to 10 hours on a bus to go play a game, depending on what your location is in Canada, to play your game. So a lot of times you're spending time on the road. So 4 practices a week, 2 off-ice training sessions. In the off-season, the athletes are expected to do individual training 2 to 3 times a week, and then small group training 3 times a week. The whole focus of this is that to win provincial and national championships. So again, it's not recreational, it's competitive, highly competitive. The second focus, and this is the main one, is that you had to be a full-time student at SAIT in a program. You had to attend regularly. I spent 20-odd years there, and I got to know a lot of the teachers, the instructors, the professors, and I kept pretty close tabs. If I found out some of my players were not going to class, I'd suspend them, even if they were the best player. The reason for that is because we were based on being a student first and hockey player second. And what I found, and what you may find if you start working with athletes that are going to school in these hockey academies, or if you start post-secondary programs, is that usually if they had academic success or were trying, Didn't have to always get A's, but they were trying to the best of their academic ability. They were probably doing a good job for you on the ice and off the ice also. Punctuality, 2.0 GPA. So you'd had to have a passing 65% GPA to keep playing. And you had to, and the whole focus was on graduation. So if you were failing, or your classes weren't doing very well, we would help you. We would provide you tutors. As a matter of fact, we had a study hall every Monday from 1 o'clock till 4 o'clock, 3 hours, where we had study hall, where the guys could come in. There was a tutor there, usually in math or sciences, to work with the guys. And then if they needed more help after, we would support them by having the tutor work with them one-on-one if needed. The whole idea is to graduate and to have an academic success. Another key point, one of my favorites here, because the Say Trojan Athletics program actually has the record in Canada, is that we won 3 national awards for having the best or most influential community service program in Canada out of 124 schools, post-secondary institutions. And I'm really proud of that. So we asked our players to be role models in the classroom and on campus. They had to be positive ambassadors in the community. And to get their scholarships, to be able to play, and they had to be able to do at least four community service events per year, so 2 per semester. Doesn't seem like much, but it is when you're thinking about they're doing 60, 80 hours of academic and athletic work a week, and you're asking them to go out and do some community service work. Community service work could be as simple as going in and helping run a minor hockey practice for a minor hockey team, working with some kind of a cancer research or fundraisers along those lines. And what I thought it really helped was it connected our guys to the community. It made them also better people when they came back. They had their shoulders back, so to speak, head up, and they felt really positive about what they were doing. So it goes back to the whole idea is coaching with a purpose besides just the sport. Coaching with a concept on developing the whole person. So there's some references where you can get some of the information I talked to you about today. I hope this has helped you some form or fashion. Again, I want to thank you today for allowing me to be here. And good luck in your ventures and good luck coaching. Thank you very much.